At the end of the day, I think the easiest way to answer this is spend more time on the things that you want to get better at and the things that you're already good at. And as long as you still sprinkle in the things that you feel comfortable with, enough to where you can maintain it, you're not going to lose anything. And that's where becoming more well-rounded starts to layer in.
Yeah.
Is just time. So I know that's a
it's just it's how you depend. Well, I mean, it's, like they say, time is one of those. Hey guys, welcome to episode 26 of the Awe-Inspiring Athlete podcast. This week we are speaking with Coach Nick Briney. You guys might remember Nick. We've had him in here a few times before. He has spoke about the topics of why mobility is so awesome and how you can maximize your recovery plan. This week, though, he's going to be speaking about how adding variety to your fitness routine can not only help add spice and prevent boredom, but also possibly be the secret ingredient to success with your fitness goals. Before we get started, though, let's go ahead and hit our housekeeping items real quick. First and foremost is my caveat, which is, guys, I am not a professional that works in the health and fitness field. I am just an everyday person like the rest of you that has a lot of passion around health, fitness, nutrition, and helping others along the way. I have, however, had my own challenges when it comes to health, mostly centered around my diet, and it wasn't until I got the help of a very patient professional coach that this changed for me personally. Second is our goal, which is to speak with industry professionals about topics trending in the health and fitness community. And this is really kind of our way of giving back to others. So this podcast is meant for pretty much any type of athlete, whether you might be someone who's just getting started and you're a little overwhelmed by all the information that's available pretty much everywhere, or maybe a little bit more of a seasoned professional that thinks, maybe they just want to hear what the smart and practical guys have to say. Third is, hey guys, you can reach out to us anytime you want. We have an Instagram, we have Facebook, we have a Google voicemail where you can leave your name and question for any coach that you want. We have a Gmail account, and we also have Twitter. I will leave the information in the show notes, so be sure to reach out if you guys have questions, comments, or suggestions on topics that you'd like to hear the coaches talk about. Now let's go ahead and get started with the good stuff. All right, Nick, before we get started, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background. How did you get where you are today? What's your origin story?
Yeah, I started in fitness probably about 6 or 7 years ago. I guess if you started before that, I was an athlete. As I grew up, I played baseball, I played football, I did a little bit of track and field. I had the opportunity to play football in college at a junior college, and then walked on and played at K-State. I learned a ton of valuable lessons as I was there. I also learned a lot of things that I wish I would have known after the fact. So getting into the fitness industry was probably mostly sparked by a lot of injuries that I had issues with as an athlete. And, the more I guess I've learned, the more I've recognized the opportunity there is to just provide more detailed information on how to avoid the same mistakes I came into. So whether that be imbalances or corrective exercise or just the direction that all the innovation around strength and conditioning is going, that really intrigued me. So I started Lifetime back in 2013. Ever since then, I've really been focused on education and growing whatever opportunity I can pursue to engage and help more people. With that, I've had the chance to serve as someone who has done some onboarding for new hires. I've done training for our region for all of our new hires. I've done some education for the assistant managers in a couple different regions. Have had a chance to really get involved in the business side, but I'm probably more proud of the certifications that I went out and got. So I've gotten involved with Pilates, Olympic weightlifting, strength and conditioning, joint mobility, a variety of different certs. So I was pretty stoked when you asked me to talk about variety, because it's something that I've always really hung my hat on. And I think that it's important to have variety. I think a lot of times people get stuck and it's like, I'm guilty of this too. But I want to do the same workout plan for 6 months, 6 years, whatever it may be. And I think that the more well-rounded you are, the more dangerous you can be as an athlete, but also the more functional you are in everyday lifestyle too. So
I think it can lend to, I mean, you're going to tell us this or not, but I think it can lend to progress too, because it's so easy to get into that rut, because you know what you know, right? Like you might, every day on Monday for 5 years, you might do deadlift, and Tuesday might be bench, and Wednesday might be
not
legs,
like you're
right?
speaking from experience.
No, I mean, I did that, right? So, you know, I love that you're so passionate about the topic of adding variety to your workout, because that was something for me that, like, again, the light bulb didn't go off until I started doing it, and I started training with somebody that was like, yeah, we're not going to do the same thing every single day or the same day every week. We're going to change it up. So as you talk about variety and about how adding diversity to the workout program can help us or can get us to our next threshold, right? I'm interested in finding out from you, when it comes to adding variety and diversity to the workout programs, define what that really kind of means for any level of athlete.
Yeah, I think, and I've talked about this with you in the past, that before you define anything, you need to define a goal. And when it comes to just becoming a better athlete, and there's a lot of different things that go into that. So, I mean, when you define athleticism, you think speed, agility, power, flexibility, strength. I mean, there's a ton of different things that you could add into this, but you want to be well-rounded. And so I think that as you start to define it, you have to define your goal. But if you're looking at just purely athleticism, I think that you can get into the fact that it's like, okay, if I want to go through and get better at one specific thing at a time, of course I need to zone in. And so say that if I assess myself and my ability to perform a specific movement, or to be able to maximize my strength or my speed or my agility or any of those categories I talked about, having an assessment of where you're at with all those is going to be a good place to start, because you can get in and you can find out, okay, where am I lacking in that overall perspective? And then you can go in and you can zone in on that. And I know that's kind of the opposite of what we were talking about, but it allows you to open up the big picture and say, okay, I'm going to increase my overall ability to be well-rounded by zoning in X, Y, or Z. Having the ability to maximize all those things at once is kind of hard to do. And I think this is probably one of the biggest struggles with being well-rounded, is finding the best way to program it without losing out or limiting your ability to get better at one thing while you're not making progress in the other.
Probably really depends on what your focus is too, right? Like, because well-rounded doesn't always necessarily mean that you'll, you know, if you're competing in some kind of open tournament or something like that, that you will perform well.
And I think that it goes back to defining the goal. So it's like, if you're defining being well-rounded as a CrossFit athlete, then you need to be able to do all the different movements and all of the skills that go along with that. And you need to be able to have the conditioning that allows you to support doing that for a longer period of time or at a higher intensity. If you want to be a better volleyball player, you want to be well-rounded with agility. You want to be well-rounded with, or add into that well-rounded picture by being good with a vertical jump. You want to be able to have good flexibility through your shoulder and good strength. I mean, there's a lot of things that go in. So if I want to be the best mom I can be, what does that mean? Does that mean that I have the flexibility to get down into weird positions and wrestle with my kids, or does that mean having the endurance to chase them around all day? Does that mean having the strength to pick them up and toss them on my head? Like whatever does that mean? So you'll probably hear me say that a lot more, and I do that a lot, is when you want to define being well-rounded, you have to define the goal of what you're being well-rounded for, and then it allows you to get a little bit more detailed as you want to dive into it.
So it's, if you're a beginner, right, and you're just wanting to move better so you can play with your kids, or if you're someone who is, you're trying to find a challenge, you find a challenge that you want to approach this year, or you're an old athlete that used to perform well and you want to try to get as close to where you were at, what you're saying is it's almost, you got to pinpoint what the destination is so that you know how to build towards that goal, right?
Yep.
So I want to back up just a little bit. You had talked about the weakness perspective, because I have a feeling I know where you're going with this. Which usually you would think you would focus on the things that you're strong at, not necessarily what you're weak at.
Yeah.
Right? Do you want to talk a little bit more about what your thoughts are on specifically strength versus weaknesses? And I'm interested in how do you balance it as well?
Yeah. So, you get into, I'll just use myself as an example here because it's the easiest thing for me to relate to. Strengths, I feel good about my Olympic lifting. I feel good about my mobility, my conditioning. When it comes to moderate intensity or short intervals, I feel great with. When it comes to slow and steady for a long period of time, I struggle with, and it's because I have a short attention span. And if I can do it where I'm talking with someone in the meantime, 30 minutes will go by and I've ran a few miles and I feel really good. But for example, swimming is it's always the first thing that comes up. I can swim 50 meters, go down and back in the lap lanes, feel great. It's going to win me, don't get me wrong. My technique has probably got a lot of opportunity. I know you met with Josh a lot. I keep telling him, man, I got to get in the pool with you.
Yeah.
But with that, it's something that if I want to get better at it, I need to log sessions in the pool. Yep. So maybe that means that I give a little bit in some of those other areas. I still need to do them, but if I look at it okay, I've got 5 days a week to work out, and I want to get better at swimming, really want to make progress on it, I got to spend 3 days a week on it. Yeah. And that means that, that takes away from 3 days where I could potentially be spending that 1 hour a day I have to work out, doing things that I enjoy, kind of like you mentioned, that I want to continue to get better at, whether that be lifting or mobility or something along those lines. And I've got to push them to the side. But if you keep doing those 2 days a week, I could probably maintain it just fine. Yep. But at the end of the day, I think the easiest way to answer this is spend more time on the things that you want to get better at and the things that you're already good at. And as long as you still sprinkle in the things that you feel comfortable with, enough to where you can maintain it, you're not going to lose anything. And that's where becoming more well-rounded starts to layer in. Yeah. Is just time. So I know that's
it's just how you depend. Well, I mean, it's like they say, time is one of those resources that it's very limited, right? So if you work out 1 day a week for 5 days during the week, that's 5 hours that you work out, right? So you have to be willing to kind of change and adjust in order
be dedicated
to work towards
to it. I saw a video the other day, and it was a compilation of a guy doing a backflip every day for 365 days.
Oh my goodness.
And the first day it looked really ugly.
Yeah.
And the second day it still looked really ugly. Yeah. And the third day and the third week, it still looked pretty rough. But after you see this guy go through and do 100 backflips, all of a sudden he starts actually landing on his feet. Yeah. And you can see the emotion that goes along with it too. Yeah. Most people don't become good at the things they struggle with, or they don't overcome those barriers to get better at where their weaknesses are. Yeah. Because they don't push through the first, call it 50% of the challenge. Yep. And you don't see the result till usually after you go through a lot of really hard work where you're getting stuck, and there's a lot of frustration with it, but that video is one of the coolest things I've seen.
You have to send it to me. I want to see it. Yeah. It sounds cool.
But yeah, it was actually, I talked about this guy before. Ben Bergeron posted it on Instagram.
That's right. Yep. He's the Chasing Excellence. Yep. He's got a really good podcast. Yeah. So I can relate with you on the swimming thing, because I remember the first time when Adam and I had kind of heart to heart recently, and he's like, well, if you want to hit these goals, you want to do this competition, that means you need to do A, B, C, D. And one of those things was to work on my cardiovascular, right? I'm like you, I don't like short distances.
I think I caught you after one of those workouts not so long ago.
The swimming thing is really hard because he's like, I want you to do 1,000 meters. And I'm like, 1,000 meters? And Mom,
Yeah.
like, what do you want from me? Like, no, it's 1,000 meters in the session. And I'm like, okay.
Fair enough.
And I do. I get bored too. And I'm like, And swimming is like almost excruciating if you don't learn how to relax in the pool.
Yep.
And you have to like relax enough that you can, when you're doing it, all you're really thinking about is actively what your stroke feels like. How's your hand coming in the water? Are you porpoising? All this other stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I've only learned this as a result of working with Adam. And my husband swims twice a week because he trained with Brandon Goman for his sprint triathlon.
Yep.
And so he's taught me some stuff, and it's gotten better. So I'm now like week 4 into it, and I hadn't done it a long time before that.
Yeah.
And I'm actually look forward to it now. It's like, okay, now I can do this.
And that's the thing. You have to get past that point where you break through.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I can start to see the light at the end of it.
Yeah.
But
it's getting easier.
Very dark at the beginning.
So where are you at in your swimming career?
I got some work to do. I know. I fall in the same habit, and I think, once again, I think it's one of the biggest battles. You have to have accountability.
Yeah.
To become, to really dive into that. I don't have anyone checking in on it with me enough. Mm-hmm. I'm not asking you to do that, but but now you're going to.
Now I'm going to ask you how it's going.
No, I think it's just programming it in and putting it on your calendar like you do anything else, and like priority management. If I want to get better at it, I got to make time for it.
Come in and do it. Put it in like you would your regular workout. Just choose not to put on your weightlifting clothes and put on your swim trunks.
Yeah, and walk my butt down to the pool.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so as far as consistency, so when we talk about adding variety, consistency also comes to mind too, and the whole mind frame of consistency is key when it comes to meeting your goals. When it comes to in the gym, it's anywhere in life, but as we talk about meeting those fitness goals, those health goals, consistency is key is one thing that you hear. Another perspective that I want to add to that is, so which is more important? Should these go hand in hand? How do we bring balance into it all? How do we make sure we're not becoming obsessive and it's like when you're injured that you're trying to do pull-ups because you need to work on your pull-up or your grip strength or something like that?
I think the best thing to do is write down what you want to be good at and plan it out. And so say you have 5 days a week, 5 hours a week to train. I need to get in my calendar and I need to look at how many weeks ahead am I going to plan out, or how many weeks do I want to work on this. Call it 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks, whatever you want. We'll just say 3 months or 12 weeks. So I need to write out, okay, if I'm going to get better at pull-ups, how many times should I work on that for me to really make progress? What's realistic, what's not? Obviously getting some help from someone that's got a good idea of periodization and how to program things would help. But, maybe I start on day 1 and I go as few sets as I can to get to 20 reps in pull-ups. And I program it out to where by the time I get to week 2, I do 2 more reps total in my 5 sets or whatever it may be. So I do 5 sets to failure. How many do I get to? There's a lot of different ways to program it. Going back to what I'd said, I need to do in 12 weeks probably, I don't know, let's see, some quick mental math here. 3 days a week out of the 5, you want to probably do pull-ups. So you take 3 times 12, 36 days of pull-ups. And then you try to figure out what number of pull-ups do I want to get to total, and you start slowly working your way up until you get to that number by week 12. And so the more you can plan in advance and the more you can sit down and say, okay, for the next 12 weeks, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm going to do 5 sets of as many pull-ups as I can possibly do. You're going to see progress. You should see progress week to week as you move forward. Maybe not session to session. Yeah. But if you sit there and you plan it out and you look those 12 weeks ahead and you know, okay, 3 days a week, that's going to be a part of my regimen because it's something I need to work on, that's where consistency is key.
From a broader perspective.
But guess what you can always do now is it goes back to the question before, and kind of this one as well, is I can also look at those other gaps. So we said, okay, I've got 3 days a week for 12 weeks, but I also have 2 other days a week for those 12 weeks where I can start to work on other things that I want to make sure I don't lose my maintaining with.
Right. So your strong point.
Yeah, pull-ups isn't a workout in its own. So if it's movement specific, it's a lot easier. If it's more like different styles of training, it gets harder.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm trying to do right now, which is my excuse for not swimming, is
wait a minute.
I know,
coach
right?
that has an excuse.
Yeah, I know. Coaches need coaches too.
Yeah.
I've been playing around with some different programming stuff, and I like the idea of alternating back and forth with my strength days on dynamic strength and more isolated strength.
Mm-hmm. Define that for us real quick.
Okay, so dynamic strength would be like me looking at more, I guess you could talk more compound movements. Mm-hmm. So like your squats, your deadlifts, multi-joint movements, things that are gonna force
Olympic
you.
Lifts.
Yeah, Olympic lifting, any plyometric stuff, like anything that's gonna be more dynamic in nature. Mm-hmm. Where isolated is more what most people would categorize as bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Both are super important in that you're going to get a lot more calorie burn, you're going to get a greater metabolic effect from more of a dynamic strength day, but you're also going to create enough strength and balance between muscle groups to support your joints by doing isolated strength. So, I mean, you don't have to go all out meathead bodybuilder, like I'm going to go get a pump. Like, those things are good. You want to do that, but you also want to go do the other stuff too. So I've tried to alternate between those two. Similar to the way that we do alpha stuff, I get my conditioning set up. I do the same style for my clients too, to where we rotate between different energy systems. So you're familiar with that, but one day I would do low and slow, go at a pace that I can maintain a conversation with someone for 30 to 40 minutes. Another day my conditioning would be moderate intensity, where I'm working maybe like 15-ish minutes, like 12 to 15 minutes. And I'm trying to maintain a pretty high threshold, not to the point to where I have to stop, but where I can challenge myself and not take a break. And then the other energy system being more of your creatine phosphate system, where it's like all you got, everything,
high intensity.
Everything into it, max effort, really short intervals with like 3 or 4 times as much time to rest. So you look at the big
quite familiar with that.
Yeah, right.
Alpha, yeah.
It is it's a lot of alpha programming, but it's not just alpha, it's metabolic conditioning. So like we put a brand on it, but at the end of the day it's science-based training around how you maximize your energy systems. Being well-rounded is training all 3 of those systems. Like Jonathan Pfizer, a metabolic specialist, calls it being metabolically flexible. And that says that, and he's super motivated about this right now too. He just ran his first marathon.
On his birthday.
On his 30th birthday.
That's a commitment, right?
It is, right? Well, when you tell 2 people, you have to do it.
Is that the 2?
Yeah, I think it's all it is. You tell 2 people that I'm going to do this, and you have to do it.
Oh, fantastic.
But I know I've gotten way off from the subject or the question. You talk about consistency is key. Map it out. Look ahead in advance. Get an idea like, okay, how many days do I have to work with to be able to program my workouts? If I want to get really good at something, I need to do it more than what I'm doing everything else. So pick 1 or 2 or 3 things that you want to get good at, maybe movements, or pick 1 style or 2 styles of training that you want to get good at. Do them more than you do other things. And it's crazy because it sounds super easy. It doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to get into these crazy programs where they're all spelled out with fancy fitness language. Like, if you want to get better at it, do it more. But plan it out so you know what it looks like. And that allows you to be more structured, so when I come back and I say, hey, I don't want to lose my ability to do this as well, then you can use those open times that you aren't working on improving other things and fill in the gaps for things that you don't want to lose the ability to do.
So, as you talk about, I like how you add the scheduling piece in there, because that's how you add the consistency almost to the variety in a sense, right? How about people that get bored? Like, what do you do? What do we do to keep people from getting bored in what they're doing? They're like, oh, I just don't feel like swimming laps today, so I'm going to go do some back and shoulders or something like that.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you have to wrap your head around what you're trying to accomplish and why. Because everybody's going to have the days where you don't want to do it. Those are always the workouts you feel the best after, so I'll remind you that. And you're like, man, you know what? I came into this, I wasn't mentally ready, but I did it, and now I feel way better. I would say, I think boredom can be fixed by, once again, planning ahead and understanding the process. And if you have a good idea of, like you said earlier, where is my end point? What do I want that to look like? Envision that. Have a good idea of, okay, I want to be here in 8 weeks. I have to follow this structure to get there. So on that day when you're like, oh, I'm bored, I don't want to do this, you can go back and understand why you're doing it.
Yeah.
And you layer in that foundation of why it's important, and I think that would help people with understanding that, like, okay, my boredom of swimming, like, I made a commitment, I wanted to do this, I want to get here. It reminds you. The other side of not getting bored is, once again,
Being
programming variety.
Yeah.
And be getting too obsessed.
Yeah.
So, like, if you go through and you say, I want to get better at swimming, I've got 5 hours to work out, I'm going to do it 4 hours a week, yeah, you're going to get bored. So when you program, have the idea that, like, know that you're going to struggle with it mentally. Anything we're not good at, we're not going to enjoy doing. Mm-hmm. And we just talked about that. And so if you can plan those days to be like, you know what, today's the day I get to go snatch. Today's the day I get to go do cleans. Today's the day I get to do bench press. Whatever your go-tos are, or back and buys, like you had mentioned, program those in there so you have fun with training too. Because if you add that in, it becomes part of your process, and you have kind of like, if I get through today, I get to do this tomorrow.
Yeah.
That might help you out too.
Yeah, I know. So it was Sunday. So Sunday's usually like our easy swim. So there's a couple people from Alpha that join us. We go down on Sundays at 10, and we go, by the way, you should join us.
I know, there we go. Right? Sunday mornings at 10.
And my husband is so funny because he was like, you ready to go crush 1,000 meters? And I'm like, I really am not feeling this right now.
Yeah.
I'm so tired. And he's like, he made it fun and interesting by implementing some things that he'd kind of learned, which was he had me push a brick all the way across the bottom of the pool and back, swimming right under, and then he had us swim like with a brick on our chest. So it's just, you can also ask for ways to, how do I make this a little bit more fun?
Yeah.
Because those moments when you feel like, I really don't want to do this,
or chunk it up too.
Yeah.
Like, make it into chunks. Like, okay, I'm not going to swim 5,000 or 1,000 meters. Not 5,000 either.
No,
I'm not going to swim 1,000 meters today. I'm going to swim 4 sets of 250.
Yeah.
Like, make it easier, make it fun. Have someone there with you. I think the best thing in the world to do if you're getting bored is have someone else to go through it with you.
Mm-hmm. Suffer together.
Yeah.
Right. So, as we talk about the variety piece, why is this important, and how really can it be the secret ingredient to our success? So the importance piece, I'd like you to kind of touch on, like, we haven't really talked about types of variety that you
that's kind of where I was going to.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So types of variety, I think when you think fitness and variety, you need to be able to move first and foremost. And that means at every joint, but also through functional movement patterns. So does my shoulder move like a shoulder should? Mm-hmm. Does my hip move like a hip should? If I don't have good range of motion at each joint, and I don't have control in those joints, so like one of the functional range conditioning, or FRC principles, that, like, the big principle around it is that if I can bend over and, like, hang to touch my toes, but I can't actively pull myself in that range of motion, there's a difference between active and passive flexibility. Mm-hmm. And we talked about this one in the first podcast I did with you. But with active range of motion and passive range of motion, you got to bring the gap together there. So that would be joint mobility in my mind. So you can tag that as one. Movement patterns, if my hip doesn't work right, I'm going to compensate through my squat, my deadlift, anything that my hip is involved with. So realistically, start at the joint, then move to the movement. Mm-hmm. And once you create technique around, okay, quality of movement now, that's its whole category in its own. So am I a quality mover? Check, off the list. Also, can I move at quality for a longer period of time or a higher volume? So volume kind of comes in next. Is, am I able to do more sets, more reps, more duration?
It's endurance.
Yeah, it's endurance. And the easiest terms is, how long can I do it? And that's also while maintaining that consistency and quality of movement. Mm-hmm. So what you see a lot of times is people face this battle where all of a sudden I'm moving well, and I go to start adding volume or intensity to it, and my movement starts to deteriorate too. Or my joints get stiff, and I can't maintain that movement. And that's where you talk about adding variety comes in, is if you're not doing some type of mobility at every workout, or you're not doing some type of conditioning at every workout, it's going to be hard for you to really get in a position where you're able to maintain that consistently for a long period of time. So we talked movement quality, we've talked conditioning, we've talked, next would be strength. and finding ways to maintain just strength and range of motion. So whether that be strength in a squat pattern, where I mentioned more dynamic movement,
Right.
or strength in a bicep curl or a pull-up, or something more isolated, a hamstring curl, that can all play in. So you go back and you look at, okay, if I am having problems keeping my hip mobile, what could that be? That could be that I'm not focusing on quality of movement. That could mean that I'm overtraining. That could mean that I'm not stretching enough. It could also mean that my hamstring's too weak, and it's not creating the right balance between muscles around that hip. So there's where your isolated strength comes in. So mobility, conditioning, dynamic strength, isolated strength, those are kind of the ones that I think of.
Yep.
And the last one would be alignment. And so a lot of times people go to a chiropractor here. This is where Pilates comes into play. And that at the end of the day, you want to be able to make sure that your core is functioning properly. There's so many different muscles that attach through your midsection, around your pelvis, your abs, your glutes, your adductors, abductors, hips. I mean, everything that goes along with it. So with that, our bodies get out of alignment, especially with today's today's lifestyle. People are mostly sedentary, and it's just the way that our working world is for most people. And so you layer alignment in there, and that makes sure that because I'm sitting at my desk with my legs crossed or hunched over all day, my spine doesn't get out of alignment. I don't lose the ability to, I know you sit up all of a sudden. I don't lose the ability to use all the pelvic stabilization muscles that I have. And that's kind of where Pilates comes in, is the ability to go through and stay aligned but maintain the right muscles to be able to keep that alignment throughout the course of what you're doing. So I think I put it into 5 categories now.
That's okay. So this is kind of where I think, for me, where I go when it comes to the topic. Like you'd mentioned the sitting epidemic, right?
Yeah.
Which is big. I know we've talked about that before. When someone is not sure how to diagnose where they need to work on things, like what are some things that we can do to pay attention to? Like you say, like, I'm gonna talk about me. My left hip right now has been bothering me like crazy lately. Have I been on top of my mobility? No, probably not as much as I should be. How do we, if we're not good at paying attention to our bodies, and if there is an imbalance or something like that, what are some things that we can do to be more in tune with that?
So first and foremost, recognize any pain that you experience. I would be willing to bet that a lot of people walk around in pain every day, and just say, oh, well, everybody deals with this. It's just common. Just because it's common doesn't mean
I think that's why some people just don't do certain things like squatting, because they're like, it just hurts.
As a fitness professional, at least the way that we approach it, that's step number 1. You cannot be in pain. We can't have you walk around in pain because it immediately deteriorates your quality of life. So pain-free is always our first objective. So if you have it, figure out where it's at. Because you feel it in your hip doesn't mean that your hip's the problem. And that's where all of a sudden it's like, oh man, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. I think a lot of it is just looking, and that's the biggest question in fitness for me right now, is how do you make this more accessible to people to where I can be self-assessed. That's hard to do because there's so much science that goes into it, and you hear me like ramble on about all the different things that I think you should put in a well-rounded program. I give you 5 different styles of exercise or focus points. That's hard to do. So I do want to like make sure I say that. No one's perfect. I'm not perfect. You got to find ways to make it work for you, your schedule, your lifestyle. Assessing where you're at, that's tough. I mean, I'd like to say that there's an exercise you can do that's going to make you realign your whole body, but at the end of the day, figure out if you're in pain. If you're in pain, figure out where that pain's coming from. Do any of the obvious stretches. Okay, if my lower back is hurting, it could be anything from my hips. It usually is something involving your hips, or your hamstrings may be too tight, or you may have like some really tight lats from being hunched over. Your pecs might be tight, pulling your posture out of alignment. I think mobility and flexibility is step number 1. So look up a full body stretch. I know that on YouTube you could find about anything.
Mine was hamstring, by the way. So you actually mentioned one of them. It was my hamstring, and it was just took stretching it properly, and I went and saw Dr. Matt over at Fit, and it's way better now than it was. But it's just,
and you probably it probably wasn't just the hamstring muscle, it's probably all that connective tissue too. And so, I mean, that's where it's like,
It's crazy how it all just works
the human
together.
body is too complex to be able to say, here's what you do if you feel pain here.
Yeah, it's funny because you're
it's
mentioning all these.
from
You're
me.
talking about lats. You're talking about pecs. Like all these things that you may not be aware that could be causing that hip to hurt or whatnot, or even discomfort when you squat. You know, it's. I like the perspective of knowing how to do a self-assessment, but also understand that it's crucial to reach out and get help too.
Yeah, and
if you're not sure.
I think the easiest thing that anyone could do is try to be more aware of where you're feeling pain or tension or discomfort. And it's easier when you go see someone if you can clearly describe what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
If someone comes in and they're like, yeah, my back hurts, but it doesn't hurt very often. Or my back hurts, that's it.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, I have nowhere to start from here.
Yeah,
But if you're like,
pinpoint
my
it.
back hurts when I sit down or when I do this movement.
Yeah.
Every time that I do this, I feel this here.
Yeah.
I think it might be this. Like body awareness is the one thing that I think you could probably help people understand is if I'm feeling something, don't ignore it and don't just push it to the side. You're feeling it for a reason. Your body has those feedback signals there to tell you that something's not working right. I think a lot of people don't understand, like, the human body was built to be consistently giving feedback. If you don't listen to it, you're not going to fix it.
You'll just
So
keep going.
if you're in a position where you feel something, you got to acknowledge that you feel it. The first phase we talk about with all of our clients around adaptation is the cognitive phase of training, and that you're learning to understand where your body is in space and how to understand when your body doesn't feel right. And one of the things we could tell people about is, like, what's the difference between pain that is necessary when you work out and first start getting in shape or challenge yourself with something new, and pain that you don't want. So, I mean, I'd say there, if it's something super acute where you feel it really pinpointed, it's a sharp pain, that's probably someone you want to see a chiropractor or a massage therapist for. If it's really kind of a dull or achy pain, you could probably stretch or like train your way through that. So that's a really easy differentiator for people. And when you're thinking like, who do I go see? If it's sharp and it's really pointed and acute, you probably ought to go see someone that can manipulate you, which would be a chiropractor or massage therapist. And then if it's something that's more dull or achy, like my back is always aching, it's probably because your core muscles aren't working right and you're not flexible enough.
Right.
So we can fix those things as
Guess what?
fitness
You have to
professionals.
add variety in order to
Yeah, right.
sort of variety in order to adjust the issue, whether you're injured or if it's maybe not understanding the difference between normal pain from working out and having a tough workout one day versus an injury pain, which you did a really good job of defining that. Like if it's a sharp pain, it should not be happening.
Probably
right?
not a good idea.
If it's a dull ache, it could be, like you said, it could be you trying to compensate for something, or it could just be normal, right?
Yep.
Like you had, what was the one we did last week? Josh called it. It was thigh day the 13th.
Yeah.
I hurt for a couple days after that one.
And that's I mean, like soreness, muscle soreness versus acute pain.
Yeah.
Like those are the two things that we distinguish. Like I've had, I have a husband and wife couple that had no experience in fitness ever, and they'd come to see me, and we did mostly assessment-based things. But like when you look at what you're conditioned to do by your daily habits built over weeks, months, years, when you do something different, your body's going to be like, what in the hell are you doing? So like that workout for you, or like for those people, it was an assessment. I did a couple of squats with them. We had them do some quadruped movements for their core. We had some single leg balance, and they called me the next day and like, I don't know if we can work out again. Like, we can't move. But they didn't have any experience.
Yeah.
And for you, that was doing 1,000 squats or whatever it was in that workout.
Yeah.
And it was outside of your body's normal movement patterns or what it was normally used to being exposed to. So, of course, you're going to feel soreness from that.
Yeah.
And getting people to understand that is probably like step one for us.
I have a very addictive personality, so I'm one of those that I almost chase the pain.
Yeah.
So I like the really hard workouts.
Yeah.
So that's where, like I was talking about adding balance is, and we've talked about this perspective before. Every workout doesn't have to be a workout to kill you, right? Like you talked about doing a slow and steady cardiovascular day where maybe you're just, it's an easy pace, easy enough you can talk to somebody, and maybe one day you might be doing something really, really hard that you probably think about quitting 3 or 4 times throughout the workout, but you don't because you're a warrior and it's awesome, right? It's understanding that they all can't be, like, the variety piece also means just in, even if you're working within a specific area too,
Yeah.
right? So next is the true false.
Uh-oh.
So I'm going to ask you one, and then you get to ask me one.
Okay.
True or false? No pain, no gain. 7 days a week is the best approach to achieving optimal fitness. Why or why not?
So I'm going to go true and false. I'm going to say, when you say no pain, no gain, I'm going to say that's false. That shouldn't be the best way to do it. That is hard to not measure progress by soreness because it's tangible and you can feel it. It's once again, I talked about trusting the process of a plan or of being well-rounded and understanding what it will do for you long term. Way easier said than done because I chase the tough workouts too. Like I want to feel like it was a grind for me because it allows me to escape a little bit. 7 days a week, I think that can be true if you mix it up. And I think that the more time you have, the more opportunity you had to be well-rounded. So like earlier, I talked about joint mobility, movement patterns, dynamic strength, isolated strength, and then alignment. And when you put those 5 things together, like for me to get really good at any of them, I need to do them more than once a week, and that's going to take you more than 5 days. And it's not that you can't do like a little bit of one and then a little bit of the other in that workout. I talked about conditioning, so there's number 6. And if you want to break it down into different movement or conditioning patterns or energy systems, you can do that too. And so it's like the more time you have and the more you can dedicate to it, that is going to make you more optimally fit. At the end of the day, it comes back to what you can handle, what you can't, and what you're training for, and what your long-term goals are.
Right.
So, kind of true and false. You don't want to measure by pain, but the more time you have to dedicate to getting more variety in your program and comfortably being able to manage that, I think that, it's going to make you definitely more fit.
So interestingly enough, we have a podcast coming up, the one that is talking about why we quit and the tips of how we can keep it going. So you're touching on some things that I think are going to help kind of stir up some additional thought behind that. So we might end up getting you plugged in on that episode as well.
I'm game.
I know you are. You usually always are.
Yep.
So your turn.
All right. True or false? Flip it on the host. Let's see. Adding. What about here we go. If I work on something consistently for 3 days a week, I'm going to get better at it. True or false?
True. I think it depends on how you program it into your system though too. I think like if you always do 2 pull-ups with your goal of getting to 5 pull-ups, you have to adapt it as you go.
Yeah. No, I think that was good. I kind of gave you one that you had to go true false with as well.
Yeah.
I think you hit it spot on. True if you're adapting it and you're progressing it. If I do 5 pull-ups 3 days a week for 12 weeks, I'm not going to get any better. But if I do 5 pull-ups one week and 8 pull-ups the next week and 10 pull-ups the next, or if you think in a different context around conditioning, if I want to get really good at long endurance, I should do only long, steady state endurance exercise for 3 days a week.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest things you're seeing with a lot of these endurance athletes programs.
Yep.
Not to overstep into Josh's world because he's going to tell you a lot more around long distance endurance than I will. But I do understand metabolic conditioning pretty well. And that if I was going to do just that, it's going to limit your ability to be more metabolically flexible. And realistically, you go through and you do a race of any sort, there are going to be periods where you have to dip into different energy systems other than your just aerobic capacity.
Yep.
And so when you have the ability to maximize your peak VO2 through intervals or your threshold, your ability to get up and down that hill or through that tough spot in a race, that makes it easier too. So
I have another one for you.
Let's go.
So if you are a triathlete training for an event, you only need to focus on swim, bike, and run. weightlifting or any strength training is not necessarily going to help you meet your goal.
Now, you teed me up for this one. I hope the obvious answer after everything we said is false.
Yeah.
When you talk about being well-rounded, endurance athletes are some of the best cross-training clients that we have, because building strength through the different movement patterns are going to help increase athleticism, but also isolated strength to maybe improve your stride or the way you pull through on your swim, or maybe the way I am no expert with this, but I do understand human movement pretty well, and or the way that like your muscular endurance on the bike, or whatever it may be, or like think about all three of those movements. They're all linear. Your body will break down if you only train linear movements. And that's another big thing when you think well-rounded, is working within three different planes of movement. We haven't touched on that at all, but that's a huge deal too. And that if I do everything that's front and back, or like forward moving, and it's consistent cadence to where my swim cadence, my bike cadence, my run cadence, it's a lot of repetitive movement consistently, your body's going to break down with that long term if you don't, once again, allow it to start to adapt to different things, but also just create balance and movements and muscles, and none of that is rotational, which would be all your transverse blade movements. All of that is you want to be sagittal. Nothing's frontal, where you're moving side to side, or more lateral. So I mean, I think it's important that you mix things up in that aspect too.
I think that's interesting too, because I think it's easy to think that when you do, like for example, a lunge, you might just do a lunge frontwards, right? You can also go backwards, you can go sideways.
You could even do like your curtsy lunges. I think what's interesting to me about this is when you talk about the breakdown perspectives, it can break down certain muscles, is that you can almost create weaknesses in themselves if you don't add that variety into. I had a guy that pops in my head that I talked to, and he was a former marathoner, and he's run like 30 marathons in his life, something crazy.
My gosh.
And he had talked about how he always tells me about how his back hurts. He won't listen to my advice, but he'd be quick to tell me about or ask me about what he should do. And he had told me in his final marathon, he had tore both, like a muscle in both hip flexors.
Oh wow.
Or like hip flexor regions.
That sounds painful.
Very painful. And he's like, I ran the last 10 miles like this. I'm like, I don't know how the hell you did that, first of all. Kudos to you for the pain management. But I had talked to him about like, well, that's probably why your back hurts now. And come to find out, we go through an assessment with this guy. He has no posterior chain strength. He can't do a lateral lunge to save his life, but he's really good at running straight ahead. And so he deals with pain every day. And all this individual would need is to start to add variety into what he's doing, and get away from the things that are comfortable for him that he's done for the last 50 years of his life, or whatever it may be. He's an older gentleman, and so it's like the challenge is people get stuck in their ways, and we talked about that earlier. Understanding that you have to be open to learning and open to hearing other ways of doing things. I'm the first person to tell you that if someone has a legitimate reason why I should do something different, I'm going to listen every single time. 10 out of 10, I'll sit back and listen. I may argue with you, but it's out of just trying to have a better understanding with it. But I'm usually pretty open to new ideas, and I think that's where people get stuck around trying to add variety or fixing where they need to add variety, is they get locked in on one thing in particular that they want to do, and they don't
it's a bullseye, and they keep running towards it, not knowing that there's potentials.
Especially your competitive people. Like if it's, I want to be good at this, then they're going to dive into that. Not understanding that some of the alternative things that would support a program are going to make them better, just not directly correlated to that.
So when you're thinking about, so you just talked about clients specifically that, adding variety into their program is kind of what it's about, right? For you guys, what does an optimal program look like when you talk about adding variety? And we really kind of want to spice the programs up so we stay interested in them and we keep doing what we're supposed to do. And then talk about why you chose what you did.
Yeah, I kind of already answered this one.
You did.
As we get through the back half of this, you'll hear me repeat things, but hopefully in a manner that's a little more easy to digest. You want to make sure that you're someone that moves well at every joint. You're someone that can go through your basic squat, lunge, push, pull. When I say push and pull, I'll specify like a horizontal push, so a chest press, an overhead push, so any type of overhead press, and the same with pulls, so a row or like a pull-up or a pull-down, and then any type of rotational movement, and hinging is
So
another
rotational, what is?
So I think thoracic spine rotation, and so like you have your lower back, don't want to be doing a lot of rotation through there, but like your mid to upper back, you want to be able to rotate side to side. A lot of people get stuck in that too, to where you get a lot of tension through your back, and it's because you're not good at being able to turn your body while your hips are still planted in one spot. So training that's super important, especially if you're doing a lot of like even some of the alpha stuff. Sometimes we get pinned into doing a lot of once again sagittal plane or frontal plane movements, even mostly sagittal though, is we don't add a lot of rotation in. Sometimes that creates some stiffness or weakness. I actually had a challenging issue that I neglected that for a while, and my back got kind of tight on me for a bit. And when I dove down into it and looked back at my programming, I write all my workouts down. I've been doing this for like 3 months now, and I love it. Because I know, right? I can go back and look, and if I feel something like, have I been working on that? And I go back and look, I'm like, I haven't done any rotational training for a month and a half. Well, no wonder my back's bothering me. So I started adding it in, and I feel better. That's a really good tip that you can do too. So keeping track of your workouts. If you're someone that likes to just fly by the seat of your pants and come in and do what feels right, track it for a month or two and see what you do most. Write it down afterwards and say like, dang, I did 30 workouts and in 20 of them I did cleans. It's like, I should probably stop doing so many cleans.
Well, you can almost do, like you were talking about, you can almost do a self-assessment too. And how did I feel?
Yeah, when you go back and you talk self-assessment, that's one thing you can do. Track your stuff, plan ahead. And that doesn't take any type of expertise. It just takes attention to detail and time. But yeah, we talked about movement patterns, mobility, alignment, and then dynamic strength, isolated strength to a specific muscle group. So say you're someone that's focused more on the way you look. You're like, man, I want my back to look wider. I want my shoulders to sit back, and I want my posture to sit better there. I should probably work on my rhomboids and my rear delts and do some isolated exercises there. But as you look at like spicing it up, go through and pick things you like to do, pick things you know you need to work on, plan it ahead, keep track of what you're doing, and always be assessing. And that at the end of the day, what I do today or what I do tomorrow is not going to make me that much better. What I do consistently over a long period of time is what's going to allow me to actually see progress.
Right, see improvement.
Yep.
So you had mentioned the Pilates perspective, and I know that that's one, right? So you talk about picking out things in your program that you like to do. I kind of want to argue the case that you have to make yourself uncomfortable too, and maybe push yourself outside the zone of comfort, right? So if you got to work on your metabolic, that might mean you have to jump in the pool twice a week. If you need to work on your alignment, it might mean you might need to buck it up and go to a few Pilates
twice a week.
And by the way, Pilates is hard. I can verify that. I've done at least.
I fell in love with it, and I know that's weird to hear from a guy, because it's like there's this note, like this I don't know, like perception that it's a women's only style of exercise. Probably like from maybe when it first came out.
I agree with that. Yeah.
It was marketed and advertised as like, do Pilates and make your inner thighs look more toned. Like, that's not why I do it. I mean, of course,
considering that it was created by a man, Joseph Pilates.
Joseph Pilates. Like, if you look into the science behind it, they use Pilates to help soldiers that were injured recover while they were on bed rest. Like that. Like, it's the foundation of corrective exercise, which is what it sucks, because I have to bully my way through people's perception of what Pilates is and to get them to understand the value of it. And it does look a little bit like frillicky and like it doesn't look like the real tough manly weightlifting thing.
I don't know. I follow your Instagram. I've seen some stories that you've done some stuff that looks hard.
They're hard, yeah.
And I see it and I'm like, oh my god, I want to do that.
Yeah, it is. It's super fun. It's a completely different challenge. But I'm someone that's battled with injuries from my athletic career, and nothing keeps me aligned like Pilates does. So like for me, I've got to do it once a week. And if I don't do it on the mat, on the reformer, on the chair, in some way, shape, or form, once or twice or a couple times a week, like maybe I layer it in for 15 minutes at the beginning or end of my workout, and I still do Olympic lifting. Like that's where I'm at now is mixing up different modalities or styles of trainings or methods of training. So like I'm like playing around with different program design now where I'll come in and I'll do like a metabolic warm-up, just like we always prescribe to most of our clients. Get your metabolism warmed up, allow your body to settle into a good position metabolically. Do movement prep workout, like exercises. So maybe that means, for me, movement prep may be different for you. If you're someone who battles postural stuff, or if you have quad dominance, then I'm going to do a lot of glute work, and I'm going to do a lot of upper back strengthening and postural things for your movement prep. If I'm going to do overhead stuff that day, then I need to do that. Like, you get where I'm going. And then maybe I do a dynamic strength or an isolated strength day, and then I do one of my conditioning methods at the end. So like, I just talked about 4 or 5 of the different 6 things I talked about earlier in one workout.
You're not doing it. It's not one each day of the week.
It's not today I'm doing Pilates, today I'm doing conditioning this way, today I'm doing dynamic strength, today I'm doing this. Like, you can mix it up in one workout. And that's probably what differentiates my training style from most people, is that I try to sprinkle in a little bit of everything. And all of like the certs that people go out and get, it's not, hey, this is who I am, this is the way I train. This is another tool for my toolbox. And that allows me to be more well-rounded and make sure that I'm training people to be optimally fit. So
I think especially when you're doing a movement assessment on somebody else, like I feel like you could probably totally relate with people when they're talking about pain, especially like thoracic pain or something like that through their thoracic region or lower back pain. But it's knowing the right tool, like you mentioned, to help solve that potential movement issue because of an imbalance somewhere else or something like that, or maybe it's an alignment issue or something. So I think it's cool that you're not just focusing on one, even you yourself. Like you diversify it across the board, even in just one workout. Even though you're like, I'm going to go do snatches today, you still do all these other things. You touched all the other modalities.
And like, it sounds like that's going to take me 2 hours, but if I do a 5-minute warm-up, I do 5 minutes of one round of movement prep exercises, 5 or 6 of them, 10 to 20 reps apiece. And then I go through and I do 4 or 5 strength movements. And then I go through and do 15 minutes in conditioning at the end in some way, shape, or form, or maybe 20. Like, I can get that done in an hour to an hour and a half. As long as you know what you're doing as you go in. It goes back to what I talked about earlier. If you plan it in advance, it makes it a hell of a lot easier to do it timely. If I come in and I don't know what I want to do, for me to realistically be that well-rounded in one workout, it's going to be pretty hard because I'll get sidetracked and it's like, what do I do next?
Maybe talking to somebody on the floor when you're supposed to be right. You get sidetracked and half the stuff you had on your list doesn't get done. No, I think it's good that you're talking about planning it out. I'm a little spoiled because I do Alpha 3 days a week.
That's the benefit of working with someone. It takes the thinking out of it.
I don't have to think about it. I work out with Adam once a week, and then his assignment for me is you got to do some kind of Pilates or yoga. You got to swim twice a week.
So he takes he takes care of it for you. And that's the beauty of working with a trainer. Even if you are a trainer, having other people do programming for you. I've done that plenty of times in the past. I know, like, Drew, one of our other assistant managers, he just did the USAW cert over the weekend, and I've done Renaissance Periodizations weightlifting template before.
Well-respected program.
I learned a lot from that, and I saw some great results from it too. And he's like, hey, can I like try that? Can I borrow that from you? I'm like, let me see if I can find it. But yeah, of course. And like, all of our trainers are actively doing something like that too, or the ones that are really motivated are. And all of us fall in a rut just like every one of our clients do, or every one of our members do, where if we don't have a plan, we come in and do what we want and we kind of go through the motions for a while. But any of us, clients, members, trainers that want to go somewhere, put a plan together, whether you're the one that made it or someone else. At the end of the day, it takes time. Time that you have to invest to be able to earn the money to pay someone else, or time that you have to invest to do the studying to go in and figure out how to do it yourself.
I'd rather pay somebody else.
I know. It's just like I can fix my car if I wanted to. It's going to take me a hell of a lot of time to figure it out, so I'm going to save it and I'm going to pay someone else to get it done.
Well, how many times are you going to mess up too? Trying to
replace that oil filter or whatever, or change the tire.
If there's one thing
Hopefully you know how to do that
I can
stuff.
do. I can change the oil and change the tire.
That's good.
Thank goodness. If it comes to like,
I was totally going to judge you.
Yeah, you really set me up for failure there. If I wouldn't have known that, I could even prove it. So if we have to, I will. But.
Okay, so to recap everything, and put a bow on it. What are 3 to 5 things that you want our listeners to remember from this episode? And then when should we get help?
Yeah, I'll start with when you get help. You get help when you don't have an idea of how to address pain.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about acute pain or more sharp pains.
Mm-hmm.
Go to a chiropractor, go to a physical therapist. I'll always refer Fit Muscle and Joint.
Fantastic
in
people.
KC.
Yep.
I haven't found a better place that does what they do. They're really on the front line of recovery work. And they don't even pay me to promote them, which is not.
They don't pay me either.
Love you. I know, right?
Yeah.
But no. And if it's more dull, then try to stretch. Figure out, do some research. Like, the internet can tell you a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what to search, I think that's where a lot of people have troubles, is they don't know what to search. Like, if you type in back pain, it may take you to WebMD and tell you have cancer.
Yeah, be careful of that.
Yeah, right?
You gotta be careful, a little wary.
Know what to search,
Yeah.
which is where, that's like, if you don't know how to search, that's when you go find someone.
Yeah.
And, as far as I can speak on behalf of our trainers in Lenexa, and realistically most of lifetime trainers, I think you get this in any experience. I haven't heard anything but consistently great things about the way that we operate our expectations as a company around the training approach, and
Mm-hmm.
the openness to be able to willingly help people if they come up. It's not like if you're a member at a lifetime, you go find a trainer and you ask them a question, they're not going to say, well, here's my rate, pay me and I'll give you an hour. I actually had a guy last week, and this is just something that we do. Like, if someone comes and asks me, hey, what can I do for my knee? It's bothering me. I'm going to go through a quick assessment. I had a guy tell me that his knee was bothering him, and he's like, this has been bothering me for the last year, and I feel like it was something that happened 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I showed him some different myofascial release stuff with a lacrosse ball
Mm-hmm.
and a kettlebell, and the guy got me a gift card. I'm like, you don't need to do that. I helped him for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like we're here to serve. We're here to help people out. So I can speak on behalf of Lifetime that if you're a member, go ask your trainer.
I think it's fantastic. That's another thing too. I've gotten to know pretty much all the trainers here at Lifetime in Lenexa. I know some of the guys over at OP too, and gals. I appreciate that you guys are so big on learning and certifications and making sure you guys know your stuff, but you guys use it.
Yeah.
You don't just so you have another notch, on your belt of saying I've got this certification too. You guys actually use what you learn actively.
And when one trainer learns it, they go share it with another trainer.
Yes.
Like, I saw one of our trainers that's getting ready to go through the FRC joint mobility cert, and he was out
Thomas
showing. Thomas. Yep. And he was on the floor showing Cindy, one of our other veteran trainers, hey, this for hip mobility. I was like, wow, that's really cool. We share it with other trainers so we can help more people in the bigger picture too. So 35 things to take away. Got pretty far away from that.
Had to make that.
Yeah, I know, right? When to go find someone is whether or not you are in pain or not.
Mm-hmm.
We talked acute and more subtle. If you don't know how to search things on your own, or you don't feel comfortable researching, then definitely go see someone or ask someone. When it comes to other things, I think I reference planning a lot, recording, and constantly assessing. So if I want to go somewhere, set a date in mind. I've talked about SMART goals before. You want it to be specific. You want to be able to measure it. That doesn't mean that your goals have to be measured by the scale. That can be measured by a habit that you create, or something, just anything that you can measure. Set a timeline, and whether it's long-term, short-term, set a goal so you can plan accordingly, because at the end of the day, if you don't have an end date in mind, there's no accountability factor.
I like that, because what you're talking about doing is by setting a date, whether it's an event or whatnot.
Yep.
I think one that there's going to be quite a few of us doing is the Warhorse Challenge. So I've just told thousands of people about that, so that means we're really going to do
Are
it.
you talking about the
war
dash?
Yeah, the Warhorse challenge.
Warhorse challenge.
Yeah, here in KC.
Okay.
Is that you pick a date, you pick an event, pick a date, and then you work your way backwards from there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then understand that, okay, in between that time, like in that time frame, how much can I realistically dedicate, and only plan for what you know you can do.
Yeah, be honest.
Be honest with yourself. I've been the victim of that in the past, and that sometimes I'm like, yeah, I could do a 6-day week program, no problem.
Yeah.
And then I get to like day 5 and it's already Monday again. I'm like, well, I got 4 done now last week. Now I'm already 2 days behind. And you have all those like psychological things that come in. And if you have an extra day, guess what? That's an extra day to work on the one thing that you really want to focus on. So maybe that's the day that I go get in the pool, you know? And keep track of it. Because if you don't keep track of your progress, you're going to have a really hard time recognizing whether or not you're actually going the right direction.
I think you also, you talk about being honest with yourself, picking that date, if you do miss a day, as long as it doesn't become a habit, be compassionate with yourself.
Yeah,
because I know a lot of people that beat themselves up, but they're like, I said I was going to do this 6 days a week. I've only done it 4 for the last 3 because I got XYZ going on. Have some self-compassion too, but also be real as understanding why is it happening?
Yep.
Like, why am I missing that day? Is there something I need to change?
One thing that I can't believe I didn't mention this earlier, but you're managing your body's stress. And if I am exposing myself to the same thing over and over and over again without creating variety, like we've talked about, you're going to overstress yourself, whether that's physically, psychologically, emotionally, whatever it may be.
Your body doesn't know the difference.
Your body doesn't know the difference. Stress is stress. It's pretty black and white. I think Pfizer talked about that in the last one that I met with, or we did together. And so that goes with adding variety, but that also goes with being too hard on yourself too. And that at the end of the day, you're trying to add enough stress to your body at certain points to challenge it to adapt, but not so much stress that you don't have the ability to recover.
Yep.
And
which you also did an episode about.
I did,
recovery.
Yeah. Plug a past episode.
Yeah. No, I think that's good. Okay, so any questions I should have asked that I didn't?
No, I think that when you look at this, it's easy to go back and hear me say a lot of the same things over and over again. But we do that for a reason, and that it doesn't have to be difficult to add variety. At the end of the day, you need to make sure that you're accomplishing certain things. And I think I referenced them a bunch, but I'll say it one more time. When you look at variety and fitness, you got to be able to move well. You got to be in good conditioning shape. We didn't talk a lot about nutrition, but variety and nutrition could be a big deal too.
Yeah. Crystal's talked about that a lot.
Yep, and I know you have other podcasts that dive in there, so I didn't want to divulge there. But and then in strength work, adding variety there, so you're not doing the same styles of workout. I think if you can look in those different buckets or pillars between mobility, conditioning, strength, and variety between all those, like that's the easiest way to build it in. And if you're measuring stuff the whole way, you can tell, like, okay, last time I did this, I only did this much, or I was able to do this much more, So
just remember, that's why the documenting it piece can help us, because then those moments when you feel like maybe you didn't do so great, you might look back and realize, oh my gosh,
that's one of the best things that we do for a lot of our clients is, like, you have a bad workout and you go back and we're like, let me flip back 2 months and show you that last time we did this workout, it was twice as bad as what you thought today was. Yeah. So that always helps too.
And you've lasted longer, done better.
Yep.
Okay, so anything lifetime-wise getting ready to come up, going on that you want to talk about?
There are a lot of things changing, all for the good, which is super exciting. I know that I was able to go up to our corporate offices we spent a week in the Mall of America, which is pretty cool, actually.
Oh, wow.
Did
you go shopping?
I didn't, actually. They didn't give us time to shop, which is good for my wallet, because I'd never been to them. I'd been to Minnesota, but I'd never been to the Mall of America before that.
Yeah.
It was pretty intense. Like, you could get really anything and everything you wanted.
I bet.
The most dangerous store that I never laid eyes on was the Lulu store. I was gonna buy something and bring it back for my fiance, but I didn't see it. Legitimately didn't see it.
I couldn't find it.
I know. I don't know where it was at. But seriously, I know we spent a week up there and talked a lot about where we're going to continue to be the most innovative company, and I think that some of the biggest changes are things that we're going to do to help shore up quality of what we're doing and lower the barrier of entry. We already have a pretty premium brand, but I think it comes at a premium price right now. So I know that they're discussing cutting down the cost of supplements pretty significantly in early 2019. I know that we're in the early stages of research and development for a training app. I know that I know for a fact it'll be available for members. I don't know if they'll dive into the non-member population there. I know that we're rebranding all of our team training stuff, so we don't have team anymore. It's going to be called GTX and Alpha. So that'll be kind of cool.
Alpha's pretty big.
Alpha's a big deal, a growing brand, and I think that the rest of our group training will catch on with GTX. So that's a brand you'll hear more about probably within the next 6 months.
What's GTX stand for?
Group training, and then the X is kind of like a symbol for transformation.
Gotcha.
So the change in between the two is making it, like when you think of brands, you think of like an emotional connection to it.
Yep.
And when you look at Alpha, it's like I want to be a badass. I want to challenge myself.
Yep.
I want to go out and push the limit. That's what you think of with Alpha. So our boot camp structure's actually changed, and we're getting rid of boot camp, and it's going to be more of a metabolic conditioning class. So kind of like what our current Alpha Metcons are, but a full hour of conditioning.
Wow.
It'll be pretty intense, but it'll be good.
Sounds intense.
We did the workout as trainers last week, and it was awesome.
Was it?
And GTX is like the emotional attachment is I'm motivated by transforming my body.
Yeah.
And I'm motivated by a look and a feel, and that's more of kind of like when you get people that want to come in. Before you train for performance, you should train to get to a specific body composition to where you're healthy enough to push the limits.
Yep.
And so I think that's kind of where we're going with that. The most immediate thing that you could get involved with would be our 60-day challenge. We run those 4 times a year. I've never seen a group of people with more energy around it than what our trainers have really bought into it at this time, which I think is cool because the opportunity with the event has always been there, and that we're getting better every time we host it as a company too. But someone that signs up pays $1 a day, and you have to be a member, but you pay $1 a day. You get a 35-page get started guide. That's going to give you the basic overview of what you should do with nutrition, your conditioning, your strength training. Some of the stuff that we talked about helps you with that well-rounded piece. You get 2 workouts a week that are in a group setting with us on Tuesdays and Saturdays. And then you get a chance to meet with a trainer for a consultation up front to talk about what you need accountability for and how we can help you over the next 60 days, whether that means working with us or not. We're going to give you a ton of information. You get weekly emails around, hey, here's a quick guide to what you should and should not get at the grocery store this week. Hey, here's a plan for you to set up your own workouts. Here's how you build them. So if you want education, there's not really a better thing that we have to offer than 60-day. And like this time of year, everybody gets focused on everyone but themselves.
Yeah.
And the holiday is all about like getting together and giving to other people, but like give to yourself too, because at the end of the day, if you're not happy, it's going to be hard to give everyone else your best. So
especially if you're somebody that's thinking that, hey, so New Year's is coming right around the corner.
Yep.
I'm going to start then.
Yep.
Right? And the difference between starting now and starting then is you're going to be that much further along by then. That's one opinion.
Or you're going to be that much further behind if you decide to press pause and wait.
Or if it's a health issue, it's, how much more does that compound over the 2 months versus if I take it by the bull by the horns now and start doing what I need to now versus later. So I do have one question for you. Do you guys have any plans, and you can say no, you can say off the record and I'll turn it off. Do you guys have any plans to do any remote coaching? And the only reason I ask that is because I know people that live in an area that there's not a Lifetime. And you would think that Lifetime's everywhere, but it's not.
This is I have a pretty unique perspective in that I get a chance to see a lot of this stuff that's down the road. This is something I don't have an answer for. I wish we did. I actually had conversations with a couple of corporate executives around like, is this coming? Is it not? And it's like, we're in research and development. Okay, doesn't give me a whole lot of answers, but I know like my focus right now from a business perspective is getting the best fitness professionals in this building in the area. so that we can truly call ourselves the best. I think that we have a phenomenal staff now.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to lose anybody we have, but we're at a point where we've done a really good job of giving people results and getting trainers busy. We have a lot of veteran trainers, and we don't have a lot of availability for new coming clients.
Yeah.
So we're trying to build up good quality trainers to be able to continue to help out the people that are interested in working with us.
Support the community.
And support the community. And I think that one of the biggest challenges in doing that right now is going out and finding the best. Some of them already have remote coaching programs built.
Yeah.
So we're trying to play that fine line between like, how do we set ourselves up to bring people in that have this already there without taking away from the opportunity from us as a business. But I don't know. I think that we're in a position where we have to figure that out, and it's one of my main focus points. Is if that's not something that we offer as Lifetime, what are the boundaries for us to bend it as professionals to be able to help people? Because at the end of the day, we're all here for one common purpose, and that's to help people live a happier, healthier lifestyle. And we probably ought to get better about defining the constraints around what that looks like. So I know that was a really roundabout answer.
Well, I mean, it comes down to this point, right? That's somewhat selfish question because my mother-in-law, she has scoliosis. She worked with Josh Hilger here. Fantastic coach. Problem is she lives in San Marcos, which the closest Lifetime Fitness is over 2 hours away. And that's not feasible for her to drive there and back when she works 9-hour or 10-hour work days throughout the week. It's partially that, but also understanding that listener-wise, our listeners are everywhere. So if people have questions or something like that and they want to reach out, you guys do take questions.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, whether it's email, Instagram, anybody's business, Facebook page, whatever it may be, 100% open to taking questions. If you get to a point where you're like, I want to work with you, probably a way we can figure it out. We don't have any formalized coaching options right now. I had a trainer today come ask me like, hey, what do we do for online coaching? I'm like, this is like the question that I don't have an answer to. We don't have anything formally set right now.
But you'll let us know when you guys figure it out.
Oh, of course. We'll be telling everybody about it.
But don't be afraid to reach out.
No, of course not. And I think at the end of the day, if it really came down to it and we had somebody that wanted and needed our help, we're going to find a way to make it work.
There you go, guys.
Whether that means it's through Lifetime or not through Lifetime, we're here to help people. We're here to make a bigger impact. And I think a lot of our trainers would like to expand their reach outside of our four walls. So, I mean, we'll bend the rules a little bit if we have to make it work.
So how can people get a hold of you?
You can find me on Instagram with Nick_Briney, and if you check the spelling and the link, then I think you'll be able to find that.
It'll be in the show notes.
And then via email, it's Briney, BRINEY at lt.life. It's my email. It's my work email. Between those two platforms, whether it's a DM, a follow, or an email, you can kind of keep up with where I'm at and what I'm doing, or reach out and ask questions.
You just mastered his walking handstand recently too.
I'm trying to.
Yeah.
It's getting there.
It's impressive.
But I think, like I even had one of my clients has a big following on Instagram, and she posted something about like, hey, here's what I've done. I've been able to do this with the trainer. It was really cool that she gave me a shout out there. And a lot of people on her feed were like, well, how do I find a good trainer? How do I have a question about this? I have a question about that. So I actually fielded a bunch of questions from people that were responding to her, and helped a gal get hooked up with a good trainer in Wichita. So like at the end of the day, if we can't help with you directly, we know people, and we have trainers from all over the place. And we had a gal, like I said, that gal reached out. I asked Jonathan, who's from Wichita, hey, do you know any good trainers? He hooked me up with a couple people he went to school with that he has a good relationship with, and we got a gal connected there. So it may not always be with us, but we're going to have a really good idea of at least letting you know where to go. And at the very least, we'll tell you what to look for when you're going into a place, because unfortunately, not every place operates the same way we do or under the same.
You guys have a very high standard when it comes to coaches here, and so you guys are willing to also not only try to help people as much as you can from where you're at, even if they're not within the area, but also tell you some things to kind of help you understand some things, educate you on some things to look for in a good quality coach. Make sure you're getting what you need out of it.
Of course.
Okay, so thank you.
Of course.
You did a fantastic job. You signed yourself up for a couple more, so
put me on the books.
Congratulations.
Just let me know what we get to talk about.
Yeah.
And I'll
Always.
probably always reference back to the other times I've met with you.
Yeah,
but
no, it's cool. Anyways, till next time, thank you.
thank you.
All right.
All right, guys, that is a wrap on episode 26. Thank you again, Coach Nick Briney, for being our guest this week. Big takeaways this week. Don't be afraid to experiment with the different modalities that are available to you. You will definitely get stronger and better and faster if you do it. Practice does make perfect, obviously. And I think the one thing that I really liked, definitely not one, but one of the things that I liked that Coach Nick was talking about was how when you are used to working in a specific plane, how you can actually create deficiencies in other areas. So how he's encouraging that you work the different planes and stuff like that when it comes to when you're working out, whether on the floor or even, hey, jumping in the pool and doing laps. And maybe if laps aren't your thing, doing some Pilates, some yoga. By the way, Pilates is for guys too, so encourage you guys out there to get in there and try it out. Anyways, big things that I liked about that episode, those were those things. Let's see. Our next guest is we're going to be talking with Coach Brandon Goman about two-a-days, how to do it right and how to do it smart. Make sure you guys tune in for the next one. And thank you for following us, for your support. If you guys love what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast. Send us your comments, your feedback. We love it. Everybody have a great week.